Hey guys, welcome back. So today I want to talk about Colt and their 6940 carbine. Most people that are experienced with AR-15s will say that this would be the pinnacle of Colt's development of the M4 carbine, and Chris over at Small Arms Solutions and I both agree that this is actually probably the best rifle Colt built. This is an old rifle. This one has the M4 markings on it with an LE prefix in the serial number range. Colt got into some trouble because Lewis Machine, LMT, Lewis Machine and Tool, had a patent on the monolithic upper that Colt was infringing upon. For a short time, the rifles disappeared, and then they did make a comeback. And under the new CR prefix, the LE's gone, the M4 marking's gone, and it came back with the new CR prefix with the exact same design. This time, it has a patent number on the left-hand side of the upper receiver. If you look that patent up online, it goes back to Carl Lewis and 2003 and is the patent on the monolithic upper rail for the AR-15. The good news and the reason we're making this video is because the 6940's come and gone from the market, right? When Colt was still viable and had some military contracts and wasn't on the verge of bankruptcy, they were making some of the best, if not the best, AR-15s out there. They went through a whole bunch of turbulent times, wound up recently, or semi-recently, being purchased by CZ, and it would appear that, once again, the 6940s are flowing. Apparently, royalties are being paid to LMT because now it has the patent number on that left-hand side of the receiver, and that's what we want to talk about today, because these classics, like this one, with the M4 markings, people are still paying just ridiculous amounts of money for them, $2,700 or more. I've seen people asking for these, and they're great rifles, but certainly not worth that. And that's why we're going to show you the current production CR prefix 6940 that's coming out of Colt right now. I found it all over the internet. They're retailing for $1,390 or so, right around there, so a fraction of the cost of the originals. And we're going to see how this rifle stacks up to the earlier Colt. So please stick around for today's video, because I think you're probably going to want to consider picking up one of these new 6940s. One thing I'd like to mention before we start doing a little bit of shooting here is that this rifle does come with the M16 cut bolt carrier. The earlier 6940 with the lighter parkerized finish on the bolt carrier actually is super civilian and is cut, so it does not have the machine gun bolt carrier in it. All right, let's grab some ammunition here. We got some 55 grain Federal. I want to thank our friends over at Federal for supplying the ammunition to the channel for free. Helps us out tremendously. Great ammunition and great folks. All right, let's do a little shooting with this bad boy. I really love the 6940. Of course, when the gun locks open, just hit the button, magazine will drop out. I got one of my favorite Colt 20 rounders in here. Yeah, that DI gas system, everything about this gun with that monolithic rail, free floated barrel, just an outstanding gun. It truly, truly is. The original 6940 was so amazing for a couple of different reasons, but primarily what made it truly amazing was the fact that it had this one-piece monolithic upper. And you may ask, well, why does that matter? Well, it does matter because there's a couple of different things going on here. This upper is machined from one piece of solid aluminum. It's not bolted together up here like, say, a Daniel Defense, where you have bolts holding this rail to the receiver. You don't have anything touching the barrel from outside of the barrel nut, which screws into the receiver. Now, this does have a proprietary barrel nut. It's accessed by taking this bottom rail off, and then you have a special wrench that you can use to take the barrel off. But you get one of these rifles, if you shoot the barrel out of it in your lifetime, you shoot more than I do, and I shoot quite a bit. There's no reason really to mess with the barrels in these. The barrels are 16.1 inches long, 1 7 twist. They're cut for the M203, but that's also so you can take this off, and if you have an M203 replica or something you want to stick on there, you can mount it on the gun. It does have its evil bayonet lug, even though the barrel's too long for it to really be practically used. The early guns had the Matek rear sights. These are, about $115, so that's a really nice rear sight. And then the other thing that made this rifle unique was its front gas block, and that's because it has a folding front sight. The very early 6940s didn't have this locking piece. They would just flip up and down under ball detent pressure. This one, when you flip it up, you don't have to push any buttons, but when it's locked up, it's not going to get knocked back like the very early guns. You have this little piece right here. You just pull up, and then that front sight will fold away. And then if you want to deploy the Matek, there it is in the rear. This is an aim point patrol red dot sight, and it will co-witness through the optic plus its quick detach. So this is a very practical setup. You can tight sling this. It has QD mounts that are, they don't quarter lock. They're just going to swivel, but it has QD mounts on it on the upper receiver. On the original with this rather unique looking stock, you did have QD mounting points back here as well. Nothing on the end plate. So that's what really comprised the original 6940. And it's that free float barrel that gives it an edge in accuracy over your standard M4. Colt got into some trouble. They had knocked off LMT. I did pull up LMT's patent. I'll show that to you. And so it was kind of in flux for a while. Definitely a very popular carbine, but pretty much in flux because now Colt has to make the decision to pay royalties to LMT and maybe some penalties. I don't know how they worked it out, but they did work out their differences. So what you're going to find on the new rifles, this previous rifle that I showed you has the LE prefix for law enforcement and it does have M4 carbine marked on the lower receiver. The new guns are going to have really sharp laser engraving. They're not going to say M4 anymore. And then right here you have the patent number, which you can look up yourself. And so this rifle being right around $1,350, let's say somewhere on the internet if you're able to find one, which they're everywhere right now, which is why I picked one up. I simply couldn't believe the good price, but then I quickly realized it had the CR prefix on it, and this has to be coming out of Colt right now from the new CZ ownership. They're putting these rifles back out, and again, it's probably the best Colt AR-15 you can buy. Now, keep in mind, the newer guns are going to have a lot of subcontract parts in them and stuff like that, whether CZ plans to bring all the production back in-house like Colt once did 20 years ago. I doubt it. The distributed model makes much more sense business-wise, but it doesn't mean you can't build a super nice rifle. This is the second CR prefix AR-15 that I've seen from Colt that we've shot. We compared it to, other Colt rifles that predated it, ones that people put on a very high pedestal, and in the end, even though it's using a lot of, third-party parts, it's an extremely well-made rifle. Very accurate, very well-made, good fit and finish, has that nice dark black anodization on it. You give up on the new CR version of the 6940. You just get more plain Jane M4 style stock on it. You don't get the Matek anymore. You get a Magpul backup sight. And then up front, you still have that locking detent front sight, and you can use a standard AR-15 sight tool to adjust that for elevation and your rear sight for windage. And so it has the stepped barrel, all that good stuff, the removable body or panel down here to get to the barrel nut. 1-in-7 twist and not hammer forged, a chrome lined barrel as well. So you'll also notice that these have both the old one and the new one also have the replaceable insert in the receiver for the cam pin. That's a wear point on the AR-15s. I've been shooting AR-15 since I was probably 16 years old, 17 years old, and I have one that's got countless rounds through it, and I've not worn a hole in my receiver there from the cam pin, but it seems to be a thing because they're doing it to some AR-10s, and you also see SIG doing it to its Virtus, which also uses a T-pin type of camming action in its operation as well, so it's considered a wear point, apparently. Other than that, man, this thing is dead nuts on. It has a standard, they call it the Colt monolithic now. So if you're looking for it, you can search for 6940 CR, or you can search for the Colt monolithic. And it's going to have a mil-spec trigger in it. So it's going to have standard size Colt pins and really nice black, dark black anodization on the bolt and carrier. It's going to have a very faint C, like electro penciled in it, and MP on the bolt. But yeah. Very, very nice gun. It has a standard heavy buffer in it, and of course it's just a standard extension tube mil-spec. So overall, in looking at this gun next to the earlier gun, I see absolutely no reason to pay $1,000 more for an LE marked gun unless you're a collector. If you just want the pinnacle of the Colt rifles that are out there, then you can pick this thing up and be very confident that you're going to get an outstanding rifle, at least in my opinion, for the money. It does have heat shielding that you can also see inside the handguards here, and you have it'll come with some rail protectors in the box, brand new, along with the GI cleaning kit and a Magpul magazine on top of it. I have an American Defense red dot sight from Copper Custom. And yeah, I mean, the only thing that I kind of miss are the really deep roll marks of the earlier Colts with the laser stuff. You kind of have to put oil on them. They're so shallow and hard to see sometimes just to get them to stand out. But the Colt Pony's there, very clean gun, and a heck of a lot of fun to shoot. So I wanted to show you the Colt early 6940 carrier, how it's super civilian. They've cut it back here, so it cannot be considered a machine gun bolt carrier. Would not work with something like an Echo trigger. If you want to run an Echo trigger in something like this, the carrier that it comes with would actually work with that trigger system. So what do I think of it? Well, guys, I was ecstatic. When I saw them available online, they were available everywhere. They're in the $1,300, $1,400 price range. Yes, that's not, PSA affordable. But for what this is, again, this is probably the pinnacle of Colt's development of the M4 rifle. And for a lot of you out there, you've probably wanted one to shoot. The price has just been prohibitively high because the originals with the LE prefixes on the serial numbers were just outrageous. The only things I can really ding the 6944 overall, you do have 1913 rails, which I like. I have big hands. I like the feel of the 1913 rails. It's not super heavy, but the rails don't extend out past the front sight block, so you are limited somewhat in rail space if you go this route. Has the QD mounts up here, but they don't have quarter turns in them. They'll just freely spin. But on the new 6940, unlike the previous one, this just has a standard M4 stock, and there is nothing back here for a QD mount, nor is there an end plate for it. And so you're going to have to come up with a QD mounting solution for the rear of the rifle. Everything else looks good. The carrier, the gas key staked properly, castle nut staked. You do give up a little bit of, niceness with the plastic Magpul backup sight, but it's perfectly functional. I do prefer the Matek, but this works just fine because really you don't really need the iron sights, just get a good quality red dot sight. So overall, outstanding gun for the money. I'm really glad to see them on the market. I hope they're staying on the market. This isn't just something where they found a bunch in a warehouse somewhere and dumped them. I'm really hoping this is the result of CZ taking over Colt, because they did purchase Colt, and putting an outstanding product back on the market at a price where more Americans can certainly afford to pick one up. And hopefully they don't disappear again. Guys, if you would like to support us here at the Military Arms Channel, the best possible way to do that is to become part of our Patreon family. There is a link in the video description below. Also, right here on YouTube, you got that little join button underneath the video player you're watching right now. Mash that join button and support us here on YouTube in the age of demonetization. And last but not least, please swing by and check out coppercustom.com. Thank you for 14 years of support. We'll talk to you guys soon.